welcome to my latest video. Today I'm doing something a little different and I'm going to rank the top 10 highest grossing movies. If you don't know what that means, it's the movies that have made the most money from cinema ticket sales. So if you aren't aware of the list, you can easily look it up now, but as of filming, this is the list. I'm going to put it up on screen. As I said, depending on when you're watching this, this could be very different. But without further ado, let's get into the rankings. Coming in at 10th place, we have Frozen 2, which was the sequel to the original Frozen. At its time, Frozen was the highest grossing animated movie, but as of last year, this became the highest grossing animated movie of all time. Sitting at 10th on the highest grossing movies of all time with $1.45 billion US. My opinion, it is not as good as the first one, but it's a solid sequel. The first movie focused on a few different plot lines: what would happen to Arendelle, discovering Elsa's new powers, Anna trying to track down Elsa and bring her back home, and there's a little villainous plot inside that as well. But this movie focuses on one kind of main plot, and it has some unnecessary small plots which aren't really looked at again. But yeah, this movie basically just discovering the origin of Elsa's powers and kind of giving us a look into what other mythology there is from this world, where they could maybe look into making a third movie. The first movie focused on Anna tracking down Elsa, but this movie they're side by side for the majority of the movie, so you can kind of build their relationship as sisters. However, this movie doesn't have as much of Han and Sven in it as much as the original. They're kind of put to the side a little bit, but they still have their moments. Olaf is given more time to shine in the spotlight by himself and has some fun moments which bring this movie up a bit. Overall, I enjoy this movie, not as much as the first one. It gets a 6 out of 10 from me. Coming in at 9th place, we have Jurassic World. This, of course, being the modern take on the Jurassic Park movies, where they actually managed to open the park, but it is very much more modern than what we saw in the original movie. I know many people find this very stupid, and some of the plot lines are just absolutely ridiculous, but I absolutely agree, but I find it very entertaining and enjoyable to watch. It has some of the coolest dinosaur action that we have seen on screen today, but then it also has some ridiculous things. Most noticeably, towards the end, although it was cool, it was so ridiculous and over the top, where the raptors, the T-Rex and the humans team up to defeat this genetically engineered dinosaur. Just think about that for a second, how ridiculous that sounds, but it does make for some entertaining cinema. However, you can look past some things being stupid if they're very entertaining, but there are just some dumb things which don't work at all. The one that comes to mind is the plot line about this dude trying to steal the raptors and use them in modern warfare. It may have made sense back in around World War II. It would have been a huge advantage if they can somehow adapt these raptors into focused killing machines. But in the day where you have like drones and all these kind of advanced weapons, I don't see how animals that could get shot down within a few seconds would be any use. And it just doesn't make sense how, although it had only been open for a few years, that people would already be bored of seeing dinosaurs. I'm taking this little bit from one of my favorite YouTubers, but he made a very good point. So many people still go to the zoo and they've been open for many, many years. So it doesn't make sense how within probably 5 years people would be bored of seeing dinosaurs. And because people are so-called bored, they have to genetically engineer their own dinosaur, which leads to the plot, which causes this whole movie to be in a bit of chaos. Jurassic World is currently sitting 6th in highest grossing movies of all time, earning roughly $1.67 billion US. Overall, mix in all the ridiculous over-the-top plots and just a bunch of cliches with some good dinosaur action, and you have a fun movie to watch, which I give a 7 out of 10 to. Coming in at number 8, we have Furious 7. This is one of the movies I first saw when I moved back to England. If you're unaware, I used to live in Australia, although originally from England. This movie was one of the first I saw since moving back here. As it's on this list, it is history. This is the point where it was very mad looking back, where Fast and Furious franchise started. Started just some street racing, then with this film it's all these heists and big action scenes, and now we're up to a point in time where there's super soldiers. It's come a long way, but you can't blame them if they're dragging in all the cash. This movie is currently the 9th most expensive movie in the world in terms of earnings. It earned roughly 1.52 billion US dollars at the cinemas, and now we're going to hear my review on it. As I mentioned, just like Jurassic World, there are some dumb things in this movie, but they make for a very entertaining movie. Whether you're talking about the drone sequence at the end, or just the scene in Dubai where they drive the cars through the different towers, somehow, I don't know how they manage that, but you just don't have to think about that, otherwise it may ruin your experience. But the most ridiculous one for me is The Rock. He has a broken arm, he's sidelined for most of the movie, but when action calls, he just gives a little flex of his bicep and his cast just breaks off, and it just fully embraces its ridiculousness, but it's very great to watch and very entertaining. It's sad to say, but I think the reason this movie is such a highest gross movie is because of the tragic passing away of Paul Walker. Paul Walker being a key part of the Fast and Furious franchise, and he sadly passed away with this being his last Fast and Furious movie. And it really sends him off in a nice way, but I feel like it gained a lot of its money because people wanted to see his last film in cinema. Overall, ridiculous watch, very entertaining though, and an emotional farewell for Paul Walker. I give it a 7 out of 10. Now this may be a very debatable one, but in number 7 I have The Lion King 2019. That is the live action remake. It is also currently at 7th in the world of highest grossing movies with $1.66 billion. Now where many people didn't enjoy this is because it was a complete remake of the animated movie just transformed into live action, and to be honest, I'm not complaining. I wouldn't have changed things up. Like, the original is great, so it'll be cool to see it in live action. Where I can understand is animals don't really show any emotion, as you don't really see that from animals, so it was kind of hard to express how they're feeling, especially with the tragic death of Mufasa. But I'm not sure I would have liked it as much if they changed it up. The original Lion King is one of my favourites, so why change it up too much? I didn't find the music anywhere as near as great as the original, but it was still fun to see some different kind of takes on it. But amazing special effects. All the animals in this movie are created via computer, and it just shows how far technology has come and how great it is. Everything just looks really realistic. Overall, Lion King 2019 gets a 7 out of 10 from me. Number 6, we have Avatar. Before last year's big success of a certain movie, which we'll touch upon in a bit, Avatar was the highest grossing movie for 10 years. It currently sits as second highest grossing movie of all time with $2.79 billion, which is absolutely insane. As you can see with a lot of these movies in this list, they are mostly sequels or maybe remakes or just part of a big franchise, which is why they're so hyped for us. The only reason people saw this really is because it was a James Cameron movie. It doesn't have any sequels as of yet. It's absolutely insane and impressive how much money this made as it's a solo movie. Funny enough, a review on this is the first video I did, and just watching that video back, it is a very poor video that I made. But you have to start somewhere. Other than the great special effects and cool world building and concepts used in the Na'vi, this one isn't as special as it is to many people. I kind of see this as a very overrated movie. I still enjoyed it, but I feel like the plot is too familiar and isn't too original like we have seen in James Cameron movies. If you can sit through the long runtime, it is an easy watch as it all was spoon-fed to you. But yeah, still a good watch, just I don't see why it made so much money. I can understand why some of these movies in this list did. I don't know how this was the highest grossing movie of all time for 10 years. I was a bit disappointed because I only watched it for the first time at the beginning of the year. But yeah, overall Avatar gets a 7 out of 10 from me, and you'd already know that if you've been a loyal subscriber from the beginning who has seen my video. Coming in at number 5, we have Star Wars The Force Awakens. Now this is the second movie I've had in one of my rankings. I haven't done too many rankings, so this is kind of funny, but it was well worth the wait. Obviously the prequels were a huge disappointment. People were kind of skeptical about how J.J. Abrams would treat The Force Awakens, but yeah, as I said, well worth the wait. Very energetic start to a new trilogy, which sadly kind of faded away. Right off the bat, it establishes a great villain in Kylo Ren, who is dark and intimidating. And yeah, modern but nostalgic is how I describe this movie. It has some great new characters like Finn, Rey, Poe, but then it also brings back Han, Leia, and Chewie. One of the main problems I do have with it though is it is kind of a different take on the Return of the Jedi. Although I still really enjoy it, so I guess I can't complain. Overall, this gets an 8 out of 10 from me. Coming in at number 4, we have The Avengers. This is the first MCU movie I saw in cinema, and damn, it was 8 years ago. It's currently 8th on the highest grossing movies of all time, earning $1.52 billion US, and what a movie, honestly. Not many people had attempted a shared universe, but the MCU had been patiently leading up to the Avengers, and it executed it all extremely well. I'm pretty sure it's the first big major live action superhero team-up movie, and it was executed to perfection. It's fine that it has a straightforward plot if you execute it very well, and what I feel like this movie benefits from is it's already established the characters from the original movies that they've had. All it has to do is kind of mix them together, and when you do that, they have very good on-screen chemistry together, which is very entertaining. As they have great on-screen chemistry, you don't need action scenes to be entertained. Just their back and forth lines to each other are very entertaining in themselves. And you've established a great villain from the Thor movie, so having Loki in this one was a smart decision which paid off very well. Huge landmark for what the MCU could become today, and not only that, but what superhero movies and shared universes have tried. The Avengers gets an 8 out of 10 from me. Coming in at number 3, we have Titanic. To many of my friends' surprise, I only saw this movie for the first time about a week ago. I'm currently 17 and all my friends have said they've watched this hundreds of times. But this is an interesting one because all these movies on here have come from the 21st century except this one, which is a great achievement. This movie being the highest grossing movie until Avatar came out, earning $2.2 billion US. All these movies have been big blockbusters, but no. This one is a tragic story about the real life events of the Titanic. It's beautifully told, and once they get aboard the Titanic, although it's 3 hours long, nothing feels dragged. Very emotional and great performances from some young actors who we've seen have gone on to do huge projects in the future. And I'm glad that it spends about an hour once the iceberg has hit the Titanic, just to see the kind of chaos, and it makes you really feel there, which is not a nice feeling. This one gets an 8 out of 10 from me, and it's a great movie. In number 2, we have Avengers Infinity War. Just what a film. This is the perfect comic book movie. Obviously, watch the rest of the MCU before coming up to this if you haven't watched it already. And like I've said, it's been kind of teasing this great villain, Thanos, for multiple movies. Actually, in the first Avengers movie, in an after credit scene, you see him in Guardians of the Galaxy, and now he is fully fleshed out in his prime for this movie, and what a great villain he is. One of the greatest movie villains of all time is established here. The biggest stakes of this movie, because not only is it Earth at stake, but it's the whole universe, and you really do feel those stakes, and it just gets you so hyped up for this movie. Obviously, we'd seen Avengers movies, we'd seen crossovers, but this is the biggest event with all heroes coming together to defeat one big villain. It takes big risks and they pay off, and it delivers one of the most shocking movie endings of all time. which very much got you excited for what comes next in this list. Avengers Infinity War is the 5th highest grossing movie of all time with $2.05 billion, and it gets a 9 out of 10 from me. And on to number 1. You know what that means? Coming in at number 1 is the highest grossing movie of all time, Avengers Endgame. You know, I don't actually need any notes for this because this is my favorite movie of all time, earning a record $2.8 billion roughly. It's the highest grossing movie of all time. If you thought Infinity War was big, this makes the stakes much bigger with the mission of having to undo the past. This has the best fan service that I've ever seen in a movie. The hype was unreal for this movie. I saw it 4 times. Keep in mind that it is a 3-hour movie, so seeing it 4 times is a lot of hours. I saw it at the midnight premiere, right before I had a mock, so that's how dedicated I was. Didn't get home until like 5 AM. And then after that school day ended, I went to see it again with my friends and got goosebumps all over again. Everything seems paid off in this movie, and as I said, great fan service, especially for die-hard MCU fans. Fans of the comics get their moments with Cap wielding Mjolnir. There's so many great callbacks, whether it's the elevator scene, Peter Quill dancing to Come and Get Your Love Again, or just the smaller ones which big MCU fans will notice, like Activate Instant Kill and the good old van from Ant-Man. There isn't as much action as there has been in previous Avengers movies, but that final act is enough to satisfy you for many years. I'll never forget the experience I had watching this every single time. It brings everything to a wrap, everything that the MCU has been leading up to, from 2008 Iron Man all the way up to here, and it sets something which could be very interesting to see in the future of the MCU. Avengers Endgame easily gets a 9 out of 10 from me, and it comes in at number 1. So that was my ranking of the top 10 highest grossing movies of all time. Please let me know in the comments what you think. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.